In the depths of the human psyche lie secrets capable of both destruction and elevation. Like plants reaching for the light, people grow in diverse conditions, where some need bright light and others, saving shade. As Carl Jung wrote in his Red Book, the shadow plays an important role in shaping personality. No one is immune to the dark corners within themselves. Within each of us lie dormant animal instincts, an insatiable thirst for power and sexuality. Cruelty and aggression are traits we often try to hide, denying our ability to cause pain. However, suppressed aspects do not disappear without a trace, they go deep into the unconscious, forming what Jung called the shadow. It is the confrontation with this shadow and the integration of its elements into the personality that pave the way for the renewal of life and the healing of a world torn by contradictions. As Jung stated in Yoga and the West, only those who have passed through this darkness can hope for further progress. For the shadow to manifest, an object is needed to block the light. In psychology, this object is our persona. The persona, derived from the Latin word for an actor's mask, is a metaphorical image in Jungian psychology that we present to the world. It is the sum of qualities we want others to believe define us. According to Jung, the persona is. The influential Swiss psychologist Carl Jung once defined the persona as a kind of mask that a person wears to make a certain impression on others and to hide their true essence. This process of forming a persona begins in early childhood when we begin to realize which aspects of our personality elicit a positive reaction from loved ones, friends, and society, and which are rejected. We readily include the traits that are met with approval in our persona, and we carefully hide those that cause disapproval behind this mask. Over time, in an effort to avoid feeling hypocritical, many people begin to identify with their persona, hiding undesirable traits not only from others but also from themselves. These suppressed character traits accumulate in the unconscious, forming the so-called shadow. Jung described the shadow as the inferior part of the personality, consisting of mental elements that do not find expression in life because of their incompatibility with the conscious attitude of the persona, and therefore combine into a relatively autonomous, splinter personality, with opposing tendencies in the unconscious. In his profound works, particularly in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, Carl Jung reveals the concept of the shadow, the dark side of the human psyche. He argues that the suppressed aspects of our shadow do not disappear without a trace into the depths of the unconscious but continue to actively influence our lives, manifesting beyond conscious perception. One of the most common mechanisms for the manifestation of the shadow is projection. We tend to see in other people, social groups, or political movements the shortcomings and vices that are actually hidden within ourselves. Jung figuratively describes this phenomenon: we attribute to others the malicious and base qualities that we reject in ourselves, and then we fiercely criticize and attack them. Thus, the base soul simply passes from one person to another, and the world continues to seek scapegoats, as it once sought witches and werewolves. However, the influence of the shadow is not limited to projections alone. Elements of our dark side are reflected in everyday life, affecting our mood and behavior. The character traits, instincts, and desires that we suppress do not disappear but accumulate in the unconscious, creating tension between our conscious personality and the autonomous splinter personality of the shadow. This internal opposition can manifest as unexplained irritability, impulsive actions, or other undesirable manifestations. In times of increased tension or acute disagreements, when the vigilance of our consciousness weakens and control over the subconscious decreases, the shadow side of the personality comes to the fore, often leading to undesirable consequences. As Carl Jung noted, there are people who claim to have no dark sides or internal conflicts, but they overlook the fact that certain hidden forces, the reasons for which they do not know, create obstacles in their path, manifesting as sharp mood swings, inexplicable intrigues directed against themselves and others, stomach problems, pain of various localizations, causeless irritability, and a range of nervous disorders. Instead of ignoring the existence of the shadow, it is much more advisable to direct the light of awareness and understanding toward it. The first step toward accepting your shadow side is to acknowledge its existence and realize that our public personality and conscious perception of ourselves do not reflect the full extent of our essence. Having accepted this fact, a candid and critical self-analysis is necessary to uncover the character traits we have diligently concealed from ourselves and others. Jung emphasized that both the positive and negative aspects of our personality must be brought to light if we aspire to live in harmony with ourselves and the world around us, avoiding self-deception and illusions. In his work, Memories, Dreams, Reflections, Carl Jung notes that not all aspects of our shadow self are amenable to simple self-analysis and awareness, as some elements of our nature are buried in the depths of the unconscious. To bring these hidden traits to the surface, several effective strategies exist. First and foremost, we should pay close attention to the qualities and characteristics we observe in others that evoke a particularly strong emotional reaction in us. Such a reaction can serve as a reliable indication that a similar trait lies dormant within ourselves. Another useful approach is to try to glimpse the shadow of someone close to us. As a rule, this proves to be an easier task than delving into our own depths. The reason is that the shadow, while containing personal aspects, is largely shaped by the social and cultural trends prevalent in society. Thus, many elements of the shadow self are common to members of the same social group. A character trait that we reject in ourselves was likely rejected by someone close to us, a sibling or friend. By examining their shadow, we can gain valuable clues about the contents of our own. In his profound reflections on the human psyche, Carl Jung once remarked that consciousness is the most unique aspect of personality, while the shadow, in contrast, possesses less individuality. He asserted that people are distinguished from one another more by their virtues than by their vices. One of the significant benefits of a deeper understanding of our dark side is that this knowledge creates a stark contrast that allows positive character traits to emerge more brightly. Jung wrote that when a person confronts their shadow, they begin to see both sides of their nature. They become aware not only of their moral flaws but also, and automatically, of their virtues. A person can confidently say, "I can't be all that bad." Meeting a person and their shadow, in essence, means demonstrating their own light. Confronting the shadow also reduces the destructive influence of shortcomings and weaknesses on a person's life. Acknowledging a problem, be it anger, selfishness, greed, aggression, obsession, or a compulsive state, provides an opportunity to establish some control over it. A person can strive to overcome this shortcoming or, at least, minimize the potential harm it can cause. In the realm of the human psyche, as Carl Jung astutely observed, a psychiatrist possesses a unique understanding. He recognizes that deeply rooted, potentially destructive forces lurking in the unconscious can be neutralized or, at least, contained. This becomes possible when they are brought to the level of consciousness, allowing the patient to understand them and integrate them into their personality structure. In these dark depths, often referred to as the shadow, lie powerful instinctive impulses, such as the drive for dominance, aggression, and sexuality, which are colossal sources of energy. However, by recognizing these urges and sublimating them, that is, redirecting them toward higher goals, a person can significantly expand their capabilities. These sublimated energies can motivate one to take necessary risks for a fulfilling life and even stimulate creative expression, for, in Jung's words, only down below does one find the fiery source of life. It is important to note that the shadow is not solely a repository of animal instincts, flaws, and weaknesses. It also serves as a home for suppressed strengths of character that may have been displaced due to adverse upbringing or adaptation to an imperfect society. As an example, some individuals may deny their intelligence, creativity, determination, or ability to stand up to corrupt authorities. As the insightful Carl Jung notes, the shadow of human personality is not simply an accumulation of morally unacceptable traits. In its depths lie also positive qualities, such as healthy instincts, adequate responses to the surrounding world, a realistic perception of reality, and creative impulses. The shadow, therefore, presents itself in a dual guise, on the one hand, as a source of regrettable weaknesses and reprehensible inclinations, and on the other, as a treasure trove of healthy instincts and a necessary condition for achieving a higher level of consciousness. However, to unlock and harness the positive aspects of our shadow, simply observing its contents is not enough. We must consciously integrate elements of the shadow into the structure of our character and allow them to manifest in our daily lives. As Eric Newman, a prominent follower of Jung, wrote, acknowledging and accepting the shadow involves more than just a fleeting glance at our dark brother, followed by returning him to a state of suppression, where he languishes like a prisoner in a dungeon. It means giving the shadow the freedom to participate in our lives, enriching them with its multifaceted potential. The path to psychological health, according to Jung, lies through uniting with the repressed aspects of personality. Recognizing and accepting both the light and dark sides of the self allows for the formation of a complete character. This process involves mitigating the negative influence of shadow aspects and harmoniously integrating all parts of the personality into conscious self-perception. Striving for wholeness makes a person more attractive to others. Instinctive distrust is aroused by those who display exclusively positive qualities and overly identify with their social role, as a hidden, potentially dangerous shadow is always suspected behind the perfect mask. A person who is aware of both their merits and virtues, as well as their shortcomings and weaknesses, evokes much greater favor. As Jung stated, wholeness implies the presence of opposites. A strong person must recognize their weaknesses, and a smart person must allow themselves to be foolish. Otherwise, there is a sense of falseness and artificiality. It is this inner honesty and acceptance of oneself in its entirety that attracts other people who seek authenticity and depth in relationships. According to Jung, a woman appreciates a strong man's vulnerability, and a wise man's ability to be illogical, because true love is directed at the whole person, with all their contradictions and imperfections. In an era of change, when the world is torn by contradictions, Carl Jung's call for each person to accept the challenge and face their own shadow takes on special significance. This difficult path of self-knowledge becomes an act of healing not only for the individual, but also for all of humanity, mired in strife and divisions. When an individual finds the courage to confront their shadow side, they are freed from the bonds of projections that poison consciousness and fuel animosity. They cease to see political opponents, representatives of other races, religions, ethnic groups, or genders as the source of all ills and injustices. As Jung noted, a person who dares to withdraw their projections faces a dense veil of their own shadow. They take on the burden of new problems and conflicts, becoming an insoluble enigma for themselves. They will no longer be able to blame others, claiming that they are doing something wrong and that they must be fought. Unfortunately, many prefer to see shortcomings in society and those around them, while ignoring the much more serious problem hidden in the depths of their own self. They do not realize that their personality is split in two, and until they dare to face their shadow side, they will only exacerbate the hostility and disunity that reign in the modern world. According to the eminent psychologist Carl Jung, an individual who enters into a confrontation with their shadow side realizes that the source of all the world's troubles lies in their own inner world. Only by mastering the art of managing one's own shadow can a person make a tangible contribution to improving the surrounding reality. They manage to take on, albeit a small one, a share of responsibility for the colossal, still unresolved social problems facing modern society. Indeed, how can one claim objectivity and impartiality when one's gaze is clouded by ignorance of one's own essence and the darkness that one unwittingly projects onto all one's endeavors? How can one judge the world without understanding oneself?